For 2026, FIFA has done something audacious, something that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago, something that tells you more about the state of global football than any trophy ever could. FIFA has become the scalper. Let that sink in for a moment. The same organization that for years condemned ticket touts and black market resellers as the enemy of the beautiful game has now built its own official resale platform, not partnering with Ticketmaster. If you enjoyed this video, friends, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Not outsourcing to StubHub, but launching its own FIFA-owned FIFA-operated FIFA profiting resale marketplace. On this platform, FIFA collects a 30% commission on every single resale transaction, 15% from the seller, 15% from the buyer. That is not a service fee. That is not a processing charge. That is what industry insiders call double dipping. FIFA takes a cut from the person selling the ticket and a separate cut from the person buying the same ticket, for the same transaction, for the same seat, for the same 90 minutes of football. And here is the quiet part that FIFA does not want you to say out loud. FIFA's development funds the money that supposedly builds pitches in poor countries and funds youth programs and grows the women's game are partly a political currency. Votes are being purchased with football money. And the football money comes from fans, from you, from the person who just paid $11,000 for a semi-final seat, from the person who watched a ticket to the final listed for $11.5 million. That money flows up from your wallet into FIFA's accounts and then out to the 211 member associations who vote for the president. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the documented business model of world football's governing body. And it is time we talked about it honestly. Let me begin with a question. Not a rhetorical one, but a genuine one that I want you to answer in the privacy of your own mind. How much would you pay right now today to watch the most important football match of your lifetime? Think carefully. Do not answer with what you think a ticket should cost. Answer with what you would actually pay if your favorite team was in the World Cup final and you had the chance to be in the stadium. $500? $1,000? $5,000? More? Now hold that number in your mind because someone has been paying very close attention to it. FIFA has spent millions of dollars on data analytics and behavioral economics and pricing algorithms to figure out the exact number you just thought of. And then FIFA has built a ticketing system designed to charge you that amount. Not the fair amount, not the affordable amount, the maximum amount you would pay before you walk away. That is the logic of the 2026 World Cup. The 2026 FIFA World Cup, hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, is the most expensive World Cup in history by such a wide margin that comparisons to previous tournaments almost feel dishonest. A seat at the semi-final in Dallas, Texas was listed at $11,000. $11,000 for one seat for one match. A ticket to the final on the official resale platform was listed at $11.5 million. That is not a typo. $11.5 million for a ticket to a football match. And the cheapest ticket to the final from the very first sales phase, before any resale markup, before any dynamic pricing, before any commission, cost double the median annual salary in Ghana, double the median annual salary in Haiti. Let me repeat that because it is important. The cheapest ticket to the World Cup final that FIFA sold directly through its official channels cost more than what half the people in an entire country earn in a full year of work. That is not a pricing strategy. That is a moral statement. That is FIFA saying this event is not for everyone. This event is not for the working class fans who built this sport. This event is for the wealthy, for the corporations, for the people who can afford to spend $11,000 on an afternoon. So I want to spend the next part of this script not ranting, not merely reporting, but thinking. Thinking about why this happened, who decided it should happen, where all that money goes, and what it tells us about the world we live in. Because these are not questions about football. These are questions about power, about monopoly, about the difference between a market and a community, and about what happens when a non-profit organization starts behaving like the most aggressive hedge fund on Wall Street. Let me introduce you to a man named Andy Milne. Andy is not a famous footballer. He is not a billionaire or a politician or a CEO. Andy is a fan. He has attended 9 World Cups stretching back to the 1990s. He has saved money for years to make each trip. He has slept in cheap hostels and eaten street food and taken overnight buses across continents just to be in the stadium. For Andy, the World Cup is not a product, it is a pilgrimage. But for the 2026 tournament, Andy had to make a choice that broke his heart. To afford the trip across North America, he had to sell his car. his car, the thing that got him to work and to the grocery store and to his doctor appointments. He sold it to buy World Cup tickets. Andy Milne, who has done nothing wrong, who has loved this sport his entire life, who represents exactly the kind of fan FIFA should be celebrating, had to sell his car to watch the matches. And he is one of the lucky ones. At least he got tickets. Tens of thousands of other fans were priced out completely. They never even had the chance to sell their cars because the prices had already soared past anything they could reasonably afford. Now let me tell you about the mechanism that made this possible. For the first time in World Cup history, FIFA introduced dynamic pricing. Dynamic pricing is the algorithm that makes your airline ticket cost more on a Friday than a Tuesday. It is the system that makes your hotel room triple in price during a holiday weekend. But applied to World Cup tickets, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a machine for extracting every possible dollar from the desperation of fans. Here is how it works. You go online to buy tickets. You wait in a digital queue for 30 minutes or an hour or 3 hours. While you wait, the algorithm is watching. It sees how many people are in line. It sees how fast tickets are selling. It sees the exact level of demand in real time. And it raises the price. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now while you are waiting. So the price you saw when you joined the queue is not the price you pay when you reach the front. The price has increased sometimes by 50%, sometimes by 100%, sometimes by more. Fans have reported watching ticket prices double in the time it took them to type their credit card information. That is not a glitch. That is not an accident. That is the system working exactly as designed. FIFA wants you to invest your time in the queue. It wants you to imagine yourself in the stadium. It wants you to tell your friends and family that you are about to buy tickets. And then when you reach the front of the line, when the social pressure is highest, when walking away would mean admitting failure, FIFA hits you with a higher price and hopes you will pay it anyway. And thousands of fans do. They pay because this is the World Cup, because it only happens every 4 years, because they have been saving for years, because they promised their children or their parents or themselves. FIFA knows all of this. FIFA has psychologists on staff who study exactly these behavioral patterns, and FIFA has built a ticketing system designed to exploit them. The United States played a major role in making this possible, not just as a host country, but as a model for how to treat entertainment as a pure market good. In most of the world, there is a cultural assumption that certain experiences, especially experiences tied to national pride and community identity, should be affordable. Europe has laws against excessive ticket resale markups. South America has traditions of cheap general admission standing sections. Even Qatar, which is not exactly a beacon of consumer protection, had price controls on World Cup tickets. But the United States operates differently. The American model says that anything from healthcare to housing to football tickets should be priced at whatever the market will bear. If you cannot afford it, that is your problem, not the seller's problem. That philosophy has been baked into American entertainment for decades. Broadway tickets cost hundreds of dollars. Super Bowl tickets cost thousands. The Kentucky Derby has luxury boxes that cost more than most Americans make in a year. So when FIFA looked for a host for the 2026 World Cup, it did not just see stadiums and infrastructure. It saw a regulatory environment that would allow FIFA to do whatever it wanted. No price caps, no laws against resale markups, no political pressure to keep tickets affordable. Just a straight line from the fan's wallet to FIFA's bank account. Economists have a name for what FIFA is doing. They call it rent extraction. It is the process of charging the absolute maximum price that consumers are willing to pay for a product that has no substitute. And the World Cup has no substitute. There is only one World Cup. It happens once every 4 years. If you want to see your country play in the final, there is no alternative product, no competitor, no second option. That is called a monopoly. And FIFA holds an effective monopoly over the world's most popular sporting event. When a company holds a monopoly, it does not need to charge fair prices. It does not need to care about customer satisfaction. It does not need to listen to complaints from fans like Andy Milne, who sold his car. The monopoly just needs to calculate the point at which raising prices any higher would cause demand to collapse. And FIFA has calculated that point very carefully. The result is $11,000 semifinal tickets, $11.5 million final tickets on the resale market, and an average ticket price that is 5 times higher than the previous World Cup in Qatar. That is not inflation. That is not supply and demand in any honest sense. That is monopoly power being used to squeeze every possible dollar out of a captive audience. Now let me tell you where that money goes, because this is the part that should make you angry. FIFA expects to generate approximately $13 billion in revenue from the 2026 World Cup cycle. $13 billion. That is more than the GDP of some small countries. And FIFA is legally registered as a non-profit organization, a non-profit, the same legal status as your local food bank or the church down the street. But a food bank does not generate $13 billion in revenue. A church does not charge $11,000 for a seat. The non-profit label is technically true, but practically meaningless when you are dealing with sums this large. FIFA's revenues rival those of major global corporations like Coca-Cola or McDonald's. But unlike Coca-Cola or McDonald's, FIFA does not pay dividends to shareholders. It does not have owners. It does not have investors demanding a return. So where does the money go? FIFA says that 87% of its revenue is reinvested into football programs worldwide. That sounds good. That sounds responsible. That sounds like the money is going to build pitches in poor villages and fund women's leagues and train coaches in developing countries. And some of it does. Some of the money does exactly that. But a significant portion of FIFA's development funds serve a different purpose entirely. They serve as political currency. Here is how it works. FIFA has 211 member associations. Each one gets exactly one vote in presidential elections, regardless of whether it represents a country with 300 million people or 300,000 people. That means a tiny island nation with no professional league has the same voting power as Germany or Brazil or Argentina. So what do you do if you are running for president of FIFA? You visit those small nations. You promise them funding for a new stadium, or a youth program, or a coaching course. You deliver that funding right before the election, and then you collect their vote. This is not speculation. This is documented. Successive FIFA presidents from João Havelange to Sepp Blatter to Gianni Infantino have increased development spending during election years. The pattern is so consistent that economists have studied it. They found that member associations receive significantly more funding in years when the presidency is contested. That is not development. That is vote buying. And the money for those votes comes from fans, from the person who paid $11,000 for a semi-final seat, from the person who watched an $11.5 million ticket listing in disbelief. Your money is being used to buy political support for the men who run world football. The scandals are not ancient history. They are not confined to the Sepp Blatter era. In the last decade alone, multiple FIFA officials have been indicted on charges of racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering. The United States Department of Justice prosecuted more than 40 FIFA-affiliated executives and marketing officials. Some went to prison, some paid millions in fines, some are still fighting extradition, and yet the system did not change. The structure remained the same. The incentives remained the same. The ability to collect massive revenues from a captive audience and then distribute those revenues to political allies remained the same. The only difference is that now the revenue is even larger. The 2026 World Cup is on track to be the most profitable in history. And that profitability is not an accident. It is the result of deliberate strategic choices. Dynamic pricing, official resale platforms, 30% commissions on every transaction, double dipping, no price caps, no regulatory oversight. A host country that allows all of this to happen without interference. These are not the actions of a nonprofit organization trying to grow the game. These are the actions of a monopoly extracting every possible dollar from a product that fans cannot live without. But here is the thing about monopolies. They create their own opposition, because when you push people too far, they push back. And in the lead up to the 2026 World Cup, that pushback started to take shape in unexpected places. The first shot came from New York and New Jersey. The attorneys general of both states launched investigations into FIFA's ticket sales practices. They wanted to know whether dynamic pricing violated consumer protection laws. They wanted to know whether FIFA's 30% commission on resale transactions was legal. They wanted to know whether fans were being misled about ticket availability and pricing. These investigations were not symbolic. They had real teeth. They had subpoena power, and they made FIFA nervous because New York and New Jersey are home to MetLife Stadium, the venue for the 2026 World Cup final. You cannot host the biggest match in the world while fighting a legal war with the host state. So FIFA had to pay attention. Consumer advocates went further. They proposed a series of reforms that would fundamentally change how World Cup tickets are sold. End dynamic pricing. Cap resale prices at no more than face value plus a small service fee. Reserve a percentage of tickets for local residents at affordable prices. These are not radical ideas. These are standard practices in many European countries and in other major sporting events like the Olympics. But they are radical compared to what FIFA is doing. And they point toward a different vision of what the World Cup could be. Not a luxury product for the wealthy, not a corporate hospitality event, but a genuine celebration of football accessible to the fans who actually care about the result. The most important battle happened in Ontario, Canada. The Ontario provincial government passed a law banning the resale of tickets above face value, not limiting markups, not capping commissions, banning above face value resales entirely. If you buy a ticket for an event in Ontario, you cannot sell it for more than you paid. That is it. That is the law. And FIFA was not happy about it. FIFA threatened to move matches. FIFA complained to the Canadian federal government. FIFA said the law interfered with its commercial rights. But Ontario did not back down. And in the end, FIFA had to comply. The matches in Toronto and Vancouver were subject to the same rules as every other event in the province. Tickets could not be resold for a profit. The 30% commission FIFA loved so much was illegal in Ontario. The double-dipping model could not operate there, and fans in Ontario benefited directly. They paid face value. They were not gouged by resellers. They were not priced out by dynamic pricing algorithms. They just bought tickets and went to matches. It was a glimpse of a different possible world, a world where the law protects fans instead of corporations, a world where a nonprofit organization cannot act like a monopoly, a world where the World Cup belongs to everyone again.